want some sauce?
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.
What's up, everybody? How's it going out there? We're going to be making a Thanksgiving turkey. I'm going to show you how to do it so that way yours is super awesome. And everybody's going to say, how did you do this? This is the most perfect turkey I've ever had. And you say, well, I watched this video. So, anyway, this is what we're going to do. I've got a butterball turkey here. And got this one because it's cheap, right? This one was like 13 bucks. And it's only going to be me and my wife eating this. And this is more than enough. I'm also going to end up using some of this turkey specifically for leftovers because I've got a bunch of things I want to make with it, but we got to make the Thanksgiving turkey first, right? And I have purposely purchased a frozen turkey. Okay, this is not a thawed turkey. This is a frozen turkey, and I did it on purpose because we are going to be putting this in a brine because, well, that basically makes everything better. When you're dealing with poultry. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this thing up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have a 5-gallon bucket right here. Okay, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the turkey out of this bag, and I'm going to stick it inside the bucket here. Now I might not be able to immediately get to the gizzards. Okay, I might not be able to get to it because this is frozen. I'm going to try. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to get to these gizzards or anything like that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to set it inside this bucket here. And this is just a regular 5-gallon bucket you can get at places like Home Depot. I just washed it out with Dawn dish soap. So we're good to go. I'm going to take some kosher salt. And I'm going to end up putting about maybe a half a cup, maybe a little bit more of kosher salt inside here. This right here is hot water. We want that to dissolve a little bit. I'm not worried about the neck. I'm not worried about the little package of everything else inside there. This is some rosemary from the garden. So I'm not going to be putting any peppercorns in this. You can put peppercorns in this if you want to. But I'm really doing this more even though the rosemary's in there, I'm really doing this more for trying to keep the turkey moist a little bit later on down the line when we cook it, because there's not a lot of fat in turkey. And then so we want this to hold on to a moisture as much as we can. So if we can pretty much inject, if you will, salt within the muscle tissue, it's going to want to hold on to that. Okay, and that's kind of what the point of this is for moisture, as well as it's going to give the meat a little bit better of a flavor because the salt will have penetrated. And you don't have to worry about over salting it because the meat can only hold so much. Okay, so, but we've got our half a cup of salt in there. We've got a little bit of rosemary inside there. You can add other herbs if you want to. But like I said, this is more along the lines of getting that salt to absorb in the meat. Because the turkey's frozen, we don't have to add ice. And we want to put just enough to submerge this. Here in about maybe an hour, I'm going to see if I can get in there to take the neck and everything out and the giblets and all that other stuff. And as I have mentioned before, it doesn't really matter so much about that really being inside there. The only thing that we're really going to be transferring really is salt, right? And so we don't really even care if this water is necessarily dirty. I mean, honestly, you could use ocean water if you wanted to, because afterwards we are going to be rinsing the turkey off, right? And so we're good to go. If you can get those out, fantastic. If you can get them out and it's not frozen, put some ice in here, put some cold water in here. Let this set for anywhere from about 6 hours to 24 hours. So let's go ahead and get basically our pan ready. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. If you want to, you can get a rack. They call it a V-rack. It would set inside here, and you can put the turkey on there, and it'll keep it where all the juices go down and it's not sitting in its own juices. You can do it like that. I've got one of those racks. I might end up doing that still, But another thing that you can do, which is pretty much what we're going to do here, is we're going to end up layering vegetables on the bottom here, and this is going to be our support structure for the turkey. What's fantastic about this is not only is this going to be the support structure for the turkey, it's going to add some aromatics, as well as all the drippings from the turkey are going to land in here, and then this is what's going to become our gravy. So these are the same scissors that I were using. I got earlier. I got to tell you, if you do not have a set of kitchen scissors, these are some KitchenAid ones, get some, because I tell you, this is one of the greatest utensils. Prevents you from having to get things dirty. It can help you cut up all sorts of stuff if you're not good at cutting things up. It's fantastic. So we're basically just going to end up taking a bunch of celery here. That's probably good enough. I don't really see a need to peel these, so just going to end up taking these and cutting these dudes. So I've got some garlic here. I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to leave the paper on. If there is mold or something on the paper, or you see something like this, get rid of it, obviously. Okay, that's good. Don't worry about this loose paper. I mean, if you see some paper that's just loose, you can take it out of there. It's not that big of a deal. You want to leave it in, you can leave it in. Don't worry about it, and you're going to see why here in a little bit. So I've got a couple of onions here, and technically you can leave the onions, you can leave the paper on the onions as well. We're going to end up using these onions a little bit later. So for me, I get rid of at least one layer of the paper. A lot of people say, hey man, when I'm cutting onions, my eyes start tearing up. You know, I start crying. Is there something I can do to prevent that? Absolutely. What you do is you take the knife and you jam this in your eyeballs and you pop them out. Get rid of your eyes. And then you won't have that problem anymore. Okay, so don't do that, guys. There's probably some dummy out there going, I'm going to stick a knife in my eye. We're going to be putting some black pepper on this. I'm not going to be putting any on the bird simply because I personally cannot have black pepper, okay? But this needs to be part of the gravy. You need to have it. So here's part of the Christmas tree. We're going to throw, no, that's not part of the Christmas tree. This is rosemary from the garden here. We're going to save some of this so we can stuff it inside the turkey. If you have fresh sage, you can use fresh sage. I'm going to be using a little bit of powdered sage on here. Here is my V-rack. Okay. If you do not have a V-rack, do not worry about it. Do not worry about it because, like I said before, these vegetables basically are going to end up acting as your V-rack. It's going to keep things off the bottom of the pan. Okay, but I have a V-rack, so let's use the damn thing. Okay, if you want to, you can put your giblets in here, the bag of giblets. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a stick of butter. You can use more if you want, but I find one stick is fine. And this is not room temperature yet, but eventually it will be. This is dried parsley. This is ground thyme. You can use fresh thyme if you want to. If you want to put pepper in this, you can. You want to put rosemary, you can. We're basically just making an herb butter. We're going to let this come to room temperature. After it does, we're going to end up squishing all this stuff together, mixing it all up. So I've got an orange here, and I'm zesting it. I ended up having some mandarin oranges outside that were really just too small to eat, but they had a lot of oil in the skin, so I ended up zesting a little bit of that to put it inside this butter, as well as, you know, you can put the lemon juice in here too, and then we'll just mix this up. But this butter now is ready to roll. So we got things like the gizzards and stuff like that. We ended up having like the heart, we got the liver, we also have the neck. These right here are going to end up going in the bottom of the pan. It's all about just trying to get as much flavor as you can. So here is the neck. This guy is going to go also in the bottom of the pan. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Let me turn this around. But what I've done is, you see how the skin right here is open? I had put my hand in there and had separated the breast from the skin. I've done this on top and bottom of the turkey. Let me drain this. and then we'll get ready to start getting this dude ready for baking. Okay, so now we've got the bird rinsed and everything. We got a little bit of lemon here. Whew, goes inside. Got some rosemary. Got more rosemary, that goes in. What the hell, we got more rosemary, that goes in. There's a bunch of thyme from my garden, that goes inside there. Here's some bay leaves, since they're broken. I'm just gonna be putting them in like that. I'm not gonna be putting any onions or anything inside here because we have onions on the bottom. If you can put onions in there and it'll permeate the meat a little bit. Same thing with garlic. Let's go ahead and take advantage of this skin right here so we don't have to use a tie. And then now that will keep those together. The wings here, what we're going to do is we're going to get them and fold them up and under. If you got to break it, you got to break it. But essentially, like that. And you'll see right here, this is what I was talking about, where I was able to get my hand inside there. I'm going to take some of that butter that we had mixed, and I'm going to place it inside here. I'm just going to kind of squish it through here. I'm not going to put all of it in there, but I'm going to put a good amount. And this is going to end up going all over the breast. And you have to remember that turkey doesn't have a lot of fat on it. This is going to kind of coat it and help keep it moist, essentially. This is essentially why I didn't put any butter in the pan, because this is going to end up melting and going into the bottom of the pan. Got a piece of aluminum foil here, and I'm going to fold this to make a triangle. Okay? So by the time I'm done, I've got a triangle like this. This is going to end up going over the breasts right here. Okay? Just like that. Okay? And I'm going to remove this though right now, because right now I don't want this on the turkey, because what we're going to do is we're going to put this, and it's okay if there's some butter on it. Don't worry about that. That'll just help out in the future. The skin can move now because it's been released from the muscle. So I'm going to jam a toothpick in here, pretty much like that, and then that will make it tight on this side so it can only raise from the other side. A little bit of olive oil, salt. Don't be afraid to take some salt and throw it in the cavity. If you want to put black pepper, you can. As I mentioned before, I can't have black pepper. I have to keep it in the bottom, so that way it's in the gravy and everything like that for my wife, but it's not in all of the meat. It's time for this to go inside the oven, 500 degrees, and we're going to leave it in there for about 30 minutes, and we're going to put this on the bottom rack, or one step up from the bottom rack, and we're going to kind of let this get some color on it and get started. And you'll be able to see that butter and those herbs, right? That's pretty cool, fool. We're going to end up grabbing the aluminum foil, and it's a little warm, that's for sure. But that right there is going to end up protecting the breast from drying out. So 350 degrees, a few hours. Okay, so it's been in there for about an hour or so. And what we want to do is we want to kind of remove this a little bit, and we're going to baste it. Remember that herb butter? Well, this is where the rest of it is. And I'm just going to end up putting this all over that bird. And then she goes back in. Look at all them juices in there. We're going to have a killer gravy. At this point, I'm going to get rid of the aluminum foil and let this do its magic the rest of the way without it. I also want to take this out and give this a spin. So the heat basically gets transferred evenly. I'm going to leave that in. So I had checked the temperature and it said that it was done, so I'm going to take it out here and I'm going to show you how I check the temperature of it. Another thing I can do is up here in the breast area, is I can come up and stick this kind of in the center of the breast, and you'll see we're getting nice heavy readings. But I got to be careful with that because it's easy to poke too many holes. So now what I have to do is I have to take everything that's in the bottom of this and put it in a pan so I can make the gravy. I also want to make sure that if there's any remnants of turkey in here, any burnt stuff, anything at all, get rid of it. I mean, put it inside this pan, because that's pretty clean. That's how we want it. If there's anything brown in here, we need to get rid of it. We need to take it off. I'm reaching inside the turkey and taking out all of the herbs. So during the time that I'm making the gravy, I'm not going to touch this. I'm going to cover it with aluminum foil. And this, believe it or not, is going to rest for at least an hour or two, and you won't regret it if you let it rest. Okay, so we're just going to move that. Now we can start doing our gravy. Now I need to get rid of a lot of this fat, so I'm going to be basically skimming off the fat here with just a small spoon, and we're going to reserve this fat. In other words, don't get rid of it because we need it. And because everything is soft, we don't really have to use a hand mixer or anything. We can come in here with just a potato masher and just kind of start squishing everything in order to get all of those flavors and everything to kind of dissolve. Kind of turn this almost into a paste. Alright, since I squished everything and I've been cooking it a little bit, I'm going to end up running this through a strainer. So I went ahead and I've strained it. And during the time that you're straining it, you kind of want to push on everything so that way you're extracting as much juice out of it as you can. Okay, and afterwards you're going to see that you're going to be able to get even more fat out of this. Okay, so let me get more of this fat out, and then we're going to take this over to the stove, and I'm going to show you how to make the gravy from here. All gravies pretty much start with what's called a roux. And a roux is nothing more than a combination of some type of starch mixed with a fat. Okay, so here is our fat from the turkey, and so I'm going to be putting, this is a quarter of a cup of that fat. The rest of it I can save. I can use it for other cool things. Generally it's about equal parts flour to fat. What we want to do is we want this flour to absorb the fat, and then we want this to essentially cook for a little bit. We want it to start turning a very light brown color. Okay. That will take the rawness out of the flour. Okay, so this is browned. This is probably good. And now we're going to end up adding those juices from the we need to kind of mix all this stuff up real good. It's going to be thin at first, but after this comes to temperature, it'll start thickening, and we can reduce it as well to thicken it up. We can also add a little bit of cornstarch and water if we need to, if we didn't add enough flour first time around. I'm going to give this a little something something. This is a little bit of wine, maybe a quarter of a cup. The alcohol, of course, will end up dissipating. It'll evaporate, so you don't have to worry about that. If you need to add something to this, you can add chicken stock. Okay, if you need, that's if you don't have enough juices. Okay, but we should have enough here. any juices that remain from the turkey that is resting right now. Resting juices, if you will. You can throw those in here too. It definitely needs pepper, but it doesn't need any salt. I've determined that this is a little too rich, so I'm adding just straight water to this. And then I'm gonna, in order to thicken it, I'm gonna end up adding some water with cornstarch. When you're adding cornstarch, you mix it with cold water, okay? Pretty much like this. I've got a couple tablespoons of cornstarch in here, and I want this to be dissolved real well to prevent lumps, because if you just try to throw it in hot, it's not gonna work. You put it in cold water, then you add it to something hot, okay? The flavor in this gravy is just so concentrated, it'll blow your head off. And then, so that's why I ended up having to add water to this, just because it's just like, it tastes like a concentrate, okay? I didn't expect it to be that strong, really. And don't add the cornstarch and water until you start seeing this actually come up to temperature. When you start seeing it simmer, boil, that's when you want to add it. Don't do it before, because you don't know if you're going to be putting too much in. Some leftover turkey from the neck. This is actually a good time to, you'll see that up on top, a lot of the oil is being pushed over to one side. This is a good time to get rid of it. As well, if there's any scum or anything like that that's up here. Okay, so we were able to get rid of a lot of that foam. We were able to get rid of a lot of that grease. And now what we need to do is we're going to just start pouring this in until we get to a thickness that we like. It's got to come to a boil though. That's when you'll know it's at its full thickening power. And you'll know that you'll need to add more or not. Okay. Okay, so this is thickened up nicely with that cornstarch in it. Okay, so we have a nice, and then, you know, it's hot, and because it's hot, it's also going to end up looking and being a little bit more runny than it would ordinarily be. Okay, so now there's only one thing left for me to do. I'm going to take this, I'm going to take my immersion blender, I'm going to stick it inside there, I'm going to grind up any meat that's inside there. There we go, gravy's in our bowl. And I'm not going to be putting it in a gravy bowl right now because it's actually kind of late, but everything is done for tomorrow. Let's take another look at the bird. There you go, guys. That's that. This turkey right here smells incredible. It looks like it might be a little burnt, but it isn't. That's just the way that the herbs are, and it's up and underneath the skin. So when this ends up getting cut, it's going to be incredible. Plus we have all of that awesome gravy that we made with it. We're good to go. And I'm going to tell you right now, I know that gravy is going to be good on mashed potatoes. It's going to be the bomb. But anyway, guys, that is that. Happy Thanksgiving. And if you're watching this and it's not Thanksgiving, happy whatever day it is. Happy Christmas maybe. Happy maybe Turkey Day. Who knows what it is. But, you know, get your L-tryptophan in you. You need it. It's good for the serotonin levels. And hopefully you enjoyed watching this video. And until next time, guys, take care. And I'll talk to you later.